Thank you, Carol. And I'd like to welcome everybody today to All Souls Church and our service today. We are grateful that you are all with us today on this nice and gloomy day. My name is Christy, and I am the service coordinator today at All Souls Church, where our mission is to seek truth, practice love, and celebrate life. Whether you are joining us for the first time or you've been a member for a long time, you are welcome here. Whatever faith you have known or not known, or whatever your heritage, you're welcome here. Whatever questions you hold, whatever truths you seek, whatever sorrow you have known, whatever joy has filled your heart, whoever you are and whomever you love, you are welcome here. Next, I'd like to draw your attention to the insert in your program, and that has our announcements. One of just a brief last year donate to the Rosebud School, and it has upcoming events. I also want to let you know there's birthday cake downstairs for our December birthdays, and if you are celebrating a birthday in December, feel free to come up during Joys and Concerns and let us know, or rat out your partner and let us know. Okay, and then also just wanted to let you know that if you need to sign up for the email blast and give you more information, there's a sign up in the back. And now we'll just go on with our prelude. we're going to be doing the chalice lighting. Thank you, Dan. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. That's Passover Haggadah. I ask you to rise if you are able for our very first song, which is on page 121, We Build a Land. Thank you, everybody. I'd like to invite you to turn to our first reading, which is number 169. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one. 584. First reading, 584. Yes. And I'll read the regular print if you'll read the italicized. A network of mutuality. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. There are some things in our social system to which all of us ought to be maladjusted. We must evolve for all human conflict a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation. Before it is too late, we must narrow the gaping chasm between our proclamations of peace and our lowly deeds, which precipitate and perpetuate war. We must pursue peaceful ends through peaceful means. Martin Luther King, Jr. Thank you. Okay, now it's time for our story of all ages, and Joy is going to help us out with that today. Thank you.
So people can see our speakers more clearly. Okay, hi, have a seat. Okay, so this book is called Emily's Sharing and Caring Book. Do you know somebody named Emily? Yes, well, this must be your book. Actually, this was created by the Emily Post Institute, and Emily Post is famous for etiquette and manners, and sometimes over the last 100 years, probably some of you have heard of Emily Post, and she's talking about the fact that the foundation for all good manners is sharing and caring. Sharing and caring. Do you know what sharing is? What is sharing? Do you know what sharing is? You know what sharing is, right? What is sharing?
Helping people and giving them stuff even though you want it.
Absolutely. Giving stuff that you have to other people. That's called sharing. Like if you have a birthday and you bring treats, you're sharing, right? And that's why we have treats today downstairs. We have a cake to share with everybody in honor of the people that were born in December. Were any of you born in December? Yeah? No? Well, anyway, this is just a really cool picture book about how important it is to share and care, because, you know, it not only makes other people feel better, but it makes you feel better too. So this is Emily's Sharing and Caring book, and it's for all little people, even if their name isn't named Emily. Emily has a secret she wants to share with you. Do you want to know what it is? You want to know what it is? I think you already know. Emily can make people smile, and you can make people smile too. Shall I tell you how? By sharing and caring. You know what caring is. What's caring? If you care about someone, what?
You help them and
You help them and love them. That's right. It's easy to share with others. Do you know how to take turns? That's one way. Like if there's only one bicycle or only one swing, you have to take turns. That's a pretty good idea, taking turns, isn't it? That's sharing. There are lots of ways you can share. You can share toys, you could share food, you can share time or a good mood. Just sometimes smiling, right? If you smile, other people smile back. It's easy to show you care for others. And here's somebody bringing looks like some hot soup to somebody who's probably sick in bed. That sounds good. Do you think about others and what you can do to make other people feel good? That's caring. That's caring. Yeah, you want those around you to be happy, right? Then they make you happy. There are lots of times to show you care. All right? So here it says, when someone is hurt, or when someone is sad, or when you want to make someone feel special. And I know we've often done a lot of things to make people feel special, haven't we? Like a special card, right? Or a special I love you. Yeah, that makes people feel good. And then it says, but the real secret about sharing and caring is that they can do more than make others smile. They can make you smile too. So here everybody's smiling, and sharing and caring makes everyone happy. They're all holding hands. So I'm going to give you this book to take downstairs. You can share with your teachers, and then they can give it back to me, and I'm going to give it back to the library so we can share the books with all the other kids in Sioux Falls, because we've got a great library system here. Okay, we're going to sing you out, and you guys have a great time in your education classes. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, listen, you may go.
In this congregation, we have found it helpful to share the ups and downs of our lives by the practice of taking a stone from a bowl, holding it in our hand, warming it, expressing our thoughts of joy and our concern, and placing the stone in the world. I invite anybody that would like to share a concern to start coming up. I'm going to start. I have a joy in that I had a wonderful Thanksgiving with my family, and I hope you all did as well.
Now, I hope I don't break up too much, but I want to tell you a little story about a little girl named Laurel. And she went to kindergarten, and then she went to first grade, and she grew up and went to high school. And all along the way, she got no grades other than A. And she was co-valedictorian of her high school. So she went off to a great school called Middlebury College. And there she graduated eventually, 1B, which she was mad about, and and the rest A's. So she graduated number 8 in a class of several hundred students, and that was called summa cum laude, and she was elected to Phi Beta Kappa. Well, this little girl went on and taught for 4 years in Japan, because all through college she had majored in Japanese studies. So this little girl then came home, and she went to the University of Iowa on a full ride fellowship, which paid everything: books, tuition, room and board, everything. And she had an apartment, and the university paid for everything. And they sent her to Japan to make contacts, and she ended up translating a novel for her thesis from Japanese to English. Well, from there, she went to London, and she was a runner-up in the PEN Award, which is the most important award given to translators. Well, anyway, from there, she went to a great school called Washington University in St. Louis. And there again, she had a full ride teaching fellowship, paid nothing. And also, they helped her with room and board and everything. So she went there for about 6 years, and then now she's ABD, and this year she will get her PhD. And she's, again, as always, top, how she is. And she was elected to the most outstanding graduate student at Washington University. And last Monday, she signed a 6-year contract with the University of Denver for a tenure track position as professor of Japanese. So this is the culmination of mom and dad watching the little girl from the time she was a baby all the way to a 34-year-old woman taking uh, control of her life, I think maybe for the first time. And she's a little bit frightened, I can tell, but she's also awed by what she has done. And she is ordinary like me, and she came from, well, originally from Colorado, then Illinois, and now from South Dakota. And she's really a plains girl, and that goes two ways. She's a very plain woman, and she didn't decide to go to Columbia or, some of the Ivy League schools. She had interviews there, but she decided to go to the University of Denver because it's like you and me. She is like you and me. We are ordinary people, many of us. And I'm an ordinary person. But in the story we had today about sharing, I look back on my life. I'm 72 years old, and my life has been one of sharing. I've been a college English teacher for 25 years, and then I had to quit because of disabilities. But anyway, I think I have shared more than taken.
Thank you, Chuck. Okay, I'm going to take this stone for all the joys and concerns left unspoken. And now it's a time for reflection. Okay, we are going to skip our next song and move right on to our next reading, so we can make sure our speaker has enough time to give you his message. Now, our second reading is number 639. And again, I'll read the italicized, or the regular print, if you'll read the italicized. Love one another. Let us love one another because love is from God. And no one has ever seen God. If we love one another, God lives in us. There is no fear in love, for perfect love casts out fear. No one has ever seen God. If we love one another, God lives within us. 1 John 4. Thank you. Okay, now at this time, what we'd like to do is we're going to like to introduce you to our speaker, Dan Rieke. He is a member, and he is going to speak on uplifting people in Palestine and Israel.
Thank you, Christy. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through this either. It's something that has touched my heart, and I'll let you know why here in the next few minutes. And I hope we can all grow together in that wonderful word called love, even as we grow in knowledge, so that we can put that love into practicality. There are 3 quotes I want to start with today as we talk about uplifting the people in Palestine and Israel, and certainly Gaza, which is really big right now. 3 quotes. Quote, "A land without a people for a people without a land." I want to remember that. We'll get to it. Secondly, "Because you see us as strangers in this land, that is why we are afraid of you." Second quote. Third one, "Not in my name." So hang on to those 3 quotes and see if we can fit them into the conversation as we go forward. Right now, we probably have a lot of thoughts, if we watch the news at all, of sorrow and grief as we see what's going on in Gaza. And many of us may wonder, how in the world, how in this world could such energy and passion and pain come into our news and into our community and world? Well, I'm going to talk about that today and hopefully bring some hope in the process. Our upbringing does matter. My upbringing, you're looking at a German Lutheran here who went to church with a pastor who talked about God's love, but we didn't have much room for the Jewish people because they were the ones who had murdered Jesus and hadn't accepted God's plan of salvation. And so my attitude was they need to be converted. And if they weren't converted, trouble, nothing else really mattered. This upbringing made me have an attitude of kind of like that for the Jewish people. But then as I got older, I read The Diary of Anne Frank. Maybe some of you are familiar with that book. Then I saw the movie Schindler's List, and later The Boy in Striped Pajamas. In a trip to Germany to see my daughter, I went into the Buchenwald concentration camp and walked all around inside that concentration camp and learned the story of the extermination of what would be 6 million people, many of them Jewish. Oh my goodness. So I had a strong empathy now for the Jewish people. When I was 63 years old, however, I was in an interfaith book study group. And in that group, someone suggested that we read the book Blood Brothers. And I thought, okay. So we read Blood Brothers. We also read The Lemon Tree. When I got through with those 2 books, I realized there was something more going on here that I didn't know about. And it was shocked that I could be 63 years old and not know what had been going on. And then I read recently another document called Zionism, A Partial History, written by Ben Lorber. I want to get back to these writings as we move forward in our conversation today, because they all, I think, are impactful and necessary as we try to, first of all, understand what's been going on in the area of Palestine. Well, historical backdrop. The Jews were dispersed following the Roman Empire. We know this. They lived in all manner of countries, and I have a map to show you that for discussion later. It's a dispersion, just went in all kinds of places. The Ottoman Empire, prior to World War I, had gained control of Turkey and basically the Fertile Crescent. However, in World War I, the Ottoman Empire decided to join the Axis powers, Germany, Italy, and Japan. And so they became allies of World War I on the other side. Well, the British decided to take on this concern of the Ottoman Empire by getting in relationship with an Arab leader. I have his name here, but let's just go on with that, to try to divide up the Ottoman Empire. And with the promise, if you come and fight with us, we'll help you have a Jewish homeland. The British said this. This is during World War I. After World War I, there had to be a decision as to what to do with the lands. And so Britain was given a mandate to be in control of the Palestine area. At the same time, however, there was a man named Balfour. And Balfour had written a document, he was a parliamentarian in the British Parliament, who said, the Jews need a homeland. And there was another guy named Theodore Herzl, who was in Europe, who was writing about Zionism. Under all the persecutions the Jews had experienced through Germany and the pogroms of Russia, there was a desire to have a change. And this man said, we need a home for the Jewish people, and it needs to be in Palestine, our original home. And he started sharing this idea with a lot of people. Well, the decision of this man in the parliament for the Balfour document said the Jews need a home in this part of the world. And the mandate of Britain was to make sure that that happened. So Britain got this chunk of land and was trying to deal with two promises. One of the Balfour document that the Jewish people could come back, and also one that said the Arabs were going to create a home for you. So in this tension from 1917, things needed to evolve in one way or the other. Well, the Jewish people started coming to this area and set up homes and villages. And there became more and more tension in that area. By 1980, there were 30,000 Jews, and 90% of these were Muslims. But following 1917, more and more people came. The first group came, there were 25,000 people that came, and then more came in groups and groups. And so we had, by the time of 1922, we had a lot of Jewish people setting up in the Palestine area. I'm trying to follow my notes here, there's just so much data. 130,000 had come in by 1936. There was a revolt in 1936 through 39 called the Great Arab Revolt. And from this, a Peel Commission tried to have a two-state solution. And they said 80% of the land should go to the Arab people and the rest to the Jewish state. The Arabs, however, rejected this. They rebelled, and the British put down the revolt in 1939. The Israeli continued to build settlements, and there were many more skirmishes. And then there was a fear, as they were putting these settlements in place, that there would be more reprisals. So we had radical paramilitary groups like Irgun and Leahy, who joined the Zionist militias to try to protect these new settlements. The tension was growing. By 1947, the United Nations said, Britain, you're no longer in control of this situation at all. So the United Nations came up with Resolution 181 that said there would be three categories that would be given to this land. 55% would go to the Jews, 45% of this country would go to the Arabs, and Israel would be controlled by the UN. The Jews said, yes, we'll take it. And so they declared the state of Israel in 1948. They said, we are a state, we're here, this is us. The Arabs said, no, you aren't. We didn't want you here, and you've taken over our land, and you've caused us all these tensions, so they went to war. 5 different nations came to war, and the Israeli fought back, and they lost the war, so Israel then took even more land, 78% of the land. But through the result of this war in 1948, 750,000 Palestinians who were Arab Christians, Arab Muslims, Sufis, there were a variety of people who lived in this land. Anyway, they were taken out of their homes and they had to go somewhere. So they went to refugee camps in the West Bank that had been carved out by the UN, or they went to Syria, or they went to Lebanon. And so all these people were out of their homes. Well, what are you going to do? They were in refugee camps. And so the Israeli took airplanes and bulldozers and whatever it took and destroyed 500 different villages where these people had been living so that they could provide homes for the Jewish people in the state of Israel, which they said is now our state. And the state of affairs got much worse, as you can imagine. For the people living in this area, they called it a Nakba, which means a catastrophe. But for the Israeli people, it was their war of independence. The refugees were not allowed to return from refugee camps to their homes. There weren't any homes to return to in many of the areas. There were, however, some nice homes that were kept, and I hope to get to that a little bit later. Anyway, the armistice was there in place, and so people started coming even in greater numbers, and the tensions increased. 1950 became an important law that the Israeli put in place called the Law of Return. And that was that if you have relatives, grandparents, anybody who has Jewish blood, you can come to Israel and you can have land in Israeli citizenship. And so a lot of people in northern Africa particularly and elsewhere started coming back, and villages and the settlements started being built. As the land was carved in 1988, the Palestinians said, we need a state of our own. You've got the state of Israel that's now recognized by the United Nations and many other countries in the world. We're not recognized. So they created for themselves something called the state of Palestine that was to be ruled by the Palestinian Liberation Organization. And this was for the area of the West Bank and for Gaza, which had been carved out earlier for their land. That was what they wanted. In 1993, Oslo Accords came into place. Clinton, Rabin, and Arafat created what they called the Oslo Accords, and they wanted to divide up the West Bank into various areas. And this is just the West Bank now, because that was supposed to be formerly for all of the Palestinians, but now they had been so much building in that land that they decided to parcel the land so that the Palestinians would have 18% of it. This is the West Bank area. And Israel and Palestine would jointly control 22% of the land and 60% of the West Bank. This is not the state of Israel, but of the West Bank would be for the Israeli people. So they continued to build settlements. Today, if you go to Israel, you will find that the Israeli have built 230 little cities in the West Bank. 230. And these 230 cities have private roads. And if you don't have a yellow license plate on your vehicle, you can't drive on those roads. I went to Israel. I went to the West Bank. I went to Israel, and I saw these things myself. And although the whole country is only 270 miles long, there are 460 miles of walls, of concrete, tall walls. And they are protected by people who are in turrets with machine guns. And they also control all the roads to every settlement is privately protected. They're paved, they're private, they have good utilities, they have water, they have everything you need, and they are controlled completely by the Israeli people, and if you're a Palestinian, you can't get near that. And 230 little cities inside of the West Bank today. So it has turned into a military state. And that is the situation that we have actually in Palestine. This land has been carved up. It's been a battle over land. The Israeli wanted a home, and my heart was so full of compassion saying they need a home. And the world was too. The Jews had not been treated kindly in a variety of ways. And so the world said, okay, let it be. There were other interests as well, and for those of you who like the broader picture, you know those other interests. It has to do with having strong presence where there's a lot of oil. And we need that oil coming to keep our society going, and so do other countries. And to have the security that oil and the shipping lanes will be kept free, the Suez Canal, the Strait of Hormuz. There are other background reasons that empower this kind of support that the United States has been giving. 3.3 billion and now $3.8 billion every year, no strings attached, which the Israeli use to support their military endeavors. It's amazing. There are curfews, security checkpoints, 600 of them in the West Bank, roadblocks, barriers, confiscation of lands, control of water, and they try to make life as difficult as possible for the Palestinian people. So we say, didn't know that. That doesn't seem kind, that doesn't seem fair. So what do? And this is where I want to go now to talk about the things I went to see in the West Bank that were elements of love. We were talking about love and the importance of love. Elements of sharing, elements of caring. And I saw examples, and I'll just give a few examples of that. I know we have more time to discuss afterwards. First one is from that book, Blood Brothers, that I talked about. Father Elias Shakur was a young boy in a little village in northern Israel in 1948 when the military came to his family in that little village and says, you need to go in the woods because you're unsafe here right now. For security reasons, we'll let you know. So everybody in the village left. They brought in jets and they bombed the village. He saw that. He was a kid when he saw that. He went and he grew up and he got an education. He went to Europe. He learned languages. He learned skills. He came back as Father Elias Shakur of the Milkite Church, which is one of the older churches in that area. He came back and said, what am I going to do with my life? Am I going to stay in Europe or am I going to come back and try to make a difference? He went to a city in northern Israel. This is in the area that's the state of Palestine, Israel, and it's called Ibelin, city of Ibelin. And he started a nursery. He said, we've got to start with the kids, the little kids. We've got to start with the kids. So he started a nursery, and from the nursery came an elementary school, and then a high school, and then a teacher's college. Currently, the Mar Elias Educational Institution, which I was in, and I saw, and I sat with the kids, and I walked in these buildings, and I got to see Arabs and Jews and Druze and Christians and Muslims all going to school together, kids, playing sports, basketball. It was fun to see them play basketball. They were learning together. And the one thing they were asked to do was to be peacemakers. We're here to be peacemakers. We're all equal. We're all children of God. We all have a common ancestry. We're all children of Abraham, if you will, but more importantly, we're all people that need to love and get along. So this is one example I want to bring, and it is alive and active, and I'm thankful for that. Second illustration I want to do is to move us into the West Bank to a city called Ramallah, which is in the West Bank. And guess what's in the West Bank? Talk about shining a light in the darkness. The Quaker people have been there, and they have started a friends school in Ramallah. And they have a school for the girls and a school for the boys, and hundreds of students get together. And guess what? They learn values of peace and cooperation and equality. They follow the Quaker traditions, just kind of like we do, the same principles that we uphold. The value of each person, freedom of expression, but accountability too. They try to help young people live together, and they welcome. I remember they welcome everybody. I remember we sat down with some girls around a table, and this beautiful young high school girl, she smiles and she says, look at me. She says, I'm a terrorist. And she says, I'm a terrorist. And she says, listen, and her friends, they were just going, and they were saying, and they were speaking nice English to me, and they said, we don't like labels. We don't want labels. We don't need walls. Take them down. We don't care what kind of citizenship is. We're people. We're learning. We want to get along with everybody. And they were inside the West Bank. And you need to know, these are people that live there even now today, trying to promote cooperation and peace together. That's the second illustration. The third one comes out of the book, The Lemon Tree. If I go beyond, please forgive me. All right, and so The Lemon Tree is a book written because after the 1967 war, there was a woman who had gotten a house in a city called Ramla, which again is in Israel, in the state of Israel. And she was living there. Her parents had moved to this house, and they had been told, they just left. It's your house now. So she and her family from Bulgaria settled in this home in the city of Ramla. And this little girl grew up with her parents in this home. Following the 1967 war, so you can figure out how old she was if you want to, one of the boys who had been raised in that home, his name was Bashir, decided to come and see his old home. So he came and knocked on the door, and this woman sees this young man standing there, and he says, "Can I come in?" And she said, "Why?" She said, "This is my home." She said, "What? What? This is my home where I grew up. This lemon tree," that's the name of the book, "is the lemon tree that our family planted. This is my home." So, long story short, they got to know each other. They got to be friends. And now in this city of Ramla, there is something called Open House. It's that house. And guess who they welcome? Children and young people. They bring them together. Arab children, Jewish children. They have counselors who are sensitive to the tensions that are there for the families that are fearful that if they come and mix their children with people who are Palestinians, they may be vilified. The counselors are there with those sensitivities. They go on field trips. They have fun together. They learn together. This is the third example I want to bring to you today. Good things. There is a man named Mitri Rahab. I happen to have a Lutheran background. I now love to be a Unitarian. But there is a man who is an evangelical Lutheran pastor named Mitri Rahab. He is a Palestinian Lutheran minister in the city of Bethlehem, which also is under the control of the Palestinian people. He has started a university of arts, and he invites all kinds of people to come in and find peace through the expression of learning arts, drawing, painting, drama. All these things are part of this university that he's helped create. Mitri Rahab of Bethlehem. All right, so I want to talk about one more thing as we get closer to the end here. I asked myself this question. All right, so we got Zionism to come and say, this is our land, God-given land, this is our land, we're going to take it by golly, no matter what, we're not moving all these settlements. You got this side. What about all the other Jewish people? Do they agree with this? Huh? Do they? And then I read this from Ben Lorber called Zionism, a Partial History. And he goes back to 1917 and talks about how Herschel, who had got this philosophy of Zionism, was opposed. And he gets into the people, the places all around the world where people have said, no, this is going to actually turn into anti-Semitism, because if we go to this land that's already occupied, that's 90% occupied, and start doing what we're doing to people, taking their land, their crops, making life difficult for them, putting our cities on their land, it's supposed to be theirs, we're going to actually end up much, much worse as a people. And so there's all kinds of reasons where people had joined a resistance to this. And I didn't even know about it. Furthermore, I did not know that there is another organization today called Jewish Voice for Peace. There are 721,000 participants around the world. And their idea is to say, this is not who I am. This is not me. This is not me. This is not the Jewish person I am. They look at the scriptures and they see that the Jewish people are to be a welcoming people. They too were exiles. They read all the passages that say we're supposed to be practicing hospitality as the core of who we are. And look what we're doing to these people. It's wrong. And so in a variety of ways, they are resisting this and calling other people, other Jewish people and anyone else of this mind to say, this is the wrong way to create a home for the Jewish people. So the anti-Zionist movement is very strong, and it's not just around the world, it's also within Israel. There are 5 seats by a group of people within the Knesset of Israel who are really opposed to the kind of policies that are creating this oppression of the Palestinian people. Within Israel itself, today, there are many Jewish people saying, not us, we don't like it, this isn't getting us anywhere. And how much more is the power of these voices when you have the situation in Gaza, the result of this trying to control people through a military state and the building of oppression and anger that has been boiling and broiling over 75 years. This is a very difficult time. And the people are saying we need a change. We need to start seeing ourselves as people. We have a common ancestry, like Father Elias Shakur said in his Blood Brothers. We're all brothers and sisters. And as we were singing those songs today, you and I are brothers and sisters too. We really are. It doesn't matter what your background is, right? If you're here today, we don't care what your background is. If you're a human being and you're a male or a female, it doesn't matter. We are brothers and sisters, and we learn to listen to our own history, the richness of our tradition, whatever it is, with the one proviso that we do not condemn one another, but build on principles that unite us. So this is what we need to continue to do, keep teaching. This is what's going on within the darkness of problems that have evolved over many years within the Palestine area. Good people are there with us, trying to plant seeds of hope. We need to be on that side. And I hope that if you have any questions or further things, I've tried to really scale this down. I've got so much other information here. There's a lot to learn. Bring it to the conversation afterwards. Maybe we can together share our thoughts and feelings and help search for those kernels of understanding and also compassion and love that do unite us. So thank you for your listening.
Thank you, Dan. Well, we are, at this point, we are going to do the offering. Our church runs with people, but unfortunately also runs with money. Half of our funds, our collection plate, are going to, I believe it is the Veterans Community Project of tiny houses to help our veterans. Okay, at this time, we are just going to bypass the final song for time. And so we're going to go ahead and extinguish the chalice. Thank you, Dan. Where is my... Okay, and we'll have you play us out, Carol. The chalice is 16. Oh, I think Dan ran off with my program. Thank you, Carol. I knew there was something I was missing. I just couldn't figure out what it was. Okay. Okay, so the chalice is extinguished. but the light goes with us out into the world. Thank you, and I'd like to thank everybody for coming today. We will have fellowship downstairs, which does include birthday cake, and will be followed by a circle discussion up here at about 20 after, and we'll let you know. And hopefully we'll see you in both locations. Enjoy.